Right, here's what I'm going to be preaching about this morning. Let's see if you get this one. I closed my eyes, drew back the curtain. Oh, I didn't think you'd do it. Well done. Well done, everybody. I'm impressed. I'm well impressed. So this morning, felt like an audition on X Factor that. I was a little bit nervous. This morning I'm going to be talking about Joseph. And the Bible reading, which I'm not going to read, I'm going to do it in my own version, if that makes sense, is, tell you in a minute, Genesis chapter 37, verse 2 to 36. So if you want to read that when you get home, you can. But this is my version this morning, if that makes sense. So let's go with it. So Joseph was a beloved son of Jacob. Yeah? And he had some brothers, and they were jealous brothers. And eventually the story goes that he gets sold as a slave. But then a bit later on down the line, he goes from a prisoner to being a prince. Now Joseph has dreams. Is that a little bit loud, is it? A bit of an echo. Joseph has dreams, and he tells his brothers and father. His brothers become jealous. Joseph is given a coat by his father of many colours. And it wasn't just a coat of many colours, because here's the thing, it had long sleeves. Now, I prefer short sleeves, but long sleeves meant that you didn't have to do any work. You were chosen, so you could sit back and watch everybody else. So this is another reason why the brothers were jealous, because Joseph could sit back and watch everything. The brothers tended the sheep, and Joseph goes to check them. Brothers plot to kill him, and one brother, Reuben, has an idea. Why don't we put him in a pit instead? And then Judah, another brother, has an idea. Why don't we sell Joseph? And they take his coat, they cover it in animal blood, they take it to Jacob, the father, and so it's assumed that Joseph has been killed. Joseph is then eventually sold as a slave in Egypt to Potiphar, the wife of Pharaoh. Potiphar, the wife, falsely accuses Joseph of being intimate with her, and so he gets thrown into jail. Yet Joseph, despite his circumstances, is blessed because God is with him. Joseph continues to be blessed, and he's given leadership of the prisoners. Pharaoh's baker and bearer come to jail, and they have a dream, and Joseph interprets it, and it's the correct interpretation. Pharaoh has a dream, and Joseph is remembered even though he's in jail. And Joseph interprets the dream and becomes second in command of all Egypt. Famine comes, and his brothers come to Egypt for food. Joseph forgives them, and Jacob and all the family move to Egypt and live in the land of Goshen, a place of comfort and plenty. So that's a quick overview of the story. Now, slavery. I think this story speaks of evil intent, but then we have on the other side God intent. So we've got both. Evil intent, God intent. I would imagine in life we can all be slaves to something at times, can't we? Very nice. I've never been heckled like that before. It's obviously something picking something up. We'll just wait till they sort it, then we'll carry on. I've no idea. Very good. So where were we? Evil intent, God intent. We can be slaves to something. I'm sure we've all in our lives been slaves to something at times. Things that we shouldn't be slaves to in lots of situations. And Joseph was young. I suppose Joseph was a bit immature. We've all been there. Some of us may still be. Saying that. Oh, there we go again. It's me. It's me. It's recording me. Nice. There you go. Hey. Oh, even that's come on, look. Hey. Maybe God is moving this morning, eh? Good stuff. So Joseph was young, he was immature. We've all been there. Some of us, especially us men, you know what we're like. Maybe we're still a little bit immature. And we need to grow up at some point, don't we? The story clearly shows us that God uses evil intent to accomplish his plans anyway. I'm sure we can all tell a story from ourselves when something's happened to us. It's not nice. It's not been good. And God has used it to actually make things better. And this story shows us that. This story shows us that God has plans. God's saving victory happens through suffering and through sin. That's a fact. When God runs our life, the stone that was cast aside and rejected should become the chief cornerstone. So we're back to Joseph. Joseph was despised by his brothers. He's put in a pit. You can imagine Jacob's anguish. It was a pit, we're told, of despair. Who's ever been in one of those? Yeah? Do you know someone this morning who's in one of those pits? Maybe a friend, maybe a family member. We may even be in one ourselves this morning. I don't know. Who's ever been mistreated? Who's ever been not liked? It happens sometimes. And maybe sometimes it might be for a reason. But can I suggest that sometimes it might be for a season rather than a reason? We don't always know, do we, when God is working things out. It gets a little bit annoying sometimes, doesn't it? Especially when we want him to work something out. But we don't always know when he's working things out. Joseph had his dreams. Joseph had divine blessings rather than ambition. Yeah, we get some people, we see them, they chase leadership, they chase being somebody, and Joseph wasn't like that. He didn't have any particular ambition. He had his dreams and he was blessed. And this story is a testimony of the operation of the divine providence of God. Genesis 50 verse 20, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. And as Ruth said last week, it's great, isn't it? This was a corrupt, dysfunctional, jealous family. There was favoritism, and it disrupts the whole family. It has a knock-on effect. This could be anybody from society, any family, today. Because there's a lot of dysfunctional families. And I'm sure all our families at some point are dysfunctional sometimes. That's reality. Forgiveness wins the day all round. Jesus forgives, and it's important too that we forgive each other as well. But we're not always good at that, are we? We all have needed at some point in our life, and will continue, forgiveness. And we ask a lot for it, don't we? But we're really poor at giving it to somebody else at times. Joseph allowed his light to shine continuously. No matter what his circumstances were, the jailer and Pharaoh, they all knew that there was something different about Jesus, and about Joseph. And how many times do we say this? That's how we're supposed to be as Christians. Do people know that you and I are different? Do they see it? Do we display it? Now, this is how we should be. But very often what happens is problems come, chaos comes, bad things happen to us, and very slowly that begins to cover the light so that it can't be seen. And yet Joseph, we're told, his light continuously shined, even through the bad things and the dark things that were happening. And if we truly have Jesus in us, then our light will shine. It might get a little bit dim sometimes, but that's okay. As long as it's shining and it shines out and not getting covered by the chaos and the hurt and the problems. And it is tough. It's tough sometimes. And we have to make tough decisions. Sometimes we have to make sacrificial decisions in order to keep following and obeying Jesus. But we should always remember God is with us through any dark, through any tough time, through any hard time. It's not easy, but if we stick with it, he will do the same for us as he did for Joseph. So this morning, which is a good idea that you said about praying after, yeah? Let's bring our issues. Let's bring our problems. Let's bring our battles. Let's bring them this morning. Because where's the best place to bring them? Here. To the cross. It's the best place. The best place we can come. I think also Joseph, he was loyal. He was faithful. And God used him. And he can and will use us wherever he has placed us or called us to be. A light to shine. He also had lots of qualities, Joseph. He had good values. He had controlled behavior. Not always easy. He had self-discipline. Again, not always easy. We don't like the word discipline, do we? He had self-discipline. Self-discipline. He had consistency. And he had relationships through being connected. You can't have a relationship if you're not connected to somebody. You've got to be connected. So in effect, it's no good us preaching Jesus if we don't build a relationship with the people here, but the people outside as well, in society. We've got to build relationships. We need to be connected. We need a heart of passion. We need to be passionate for a purpose. I wonder, what's our purpose? Do we know what our purpose is? We've said it before. We need to be humble. And we need to be faithful. The fact of the matter is, and again, we don't like saying things like this, but sin leads to further sin. Trust me. Sin leads to further sin. When there's been times in my life when I've sinned and done wrong, instead of getting better straight away, the initial partaking in the sin or doing of the sin then leads to further sin. Every time. Every time. And sin has consequences. And again, we're not good at consequences sometimes as people. We need to face up to them. We need to take responsibility. We need to own them. And obviously we need to say sorry for them. Again, it's a story of betrayal, hurt, no support, no backing, no encouragement. Again, dysfunctional. But here's hope. We can bring about good in sin. He can turn things around if we allow him to do his work. We come back to that verse, don't we? What was intended for evil, God used for good. And that's what he did here. And that's what he can do with us. The story of Joseph reminds us that in a broken world, God's response to our prayers doesn't always come quickly. Ruth last week, remember, kept using the word patience. Patience. Again, something else we're not good at. God will answer his prayers, our prayers, when he answers them. And we need to be patient. The answers don't always come quickly. But it does teach us God's sovereignty, God's promises, God's providence. Sometimes through our suffering, we can become a source of life to others. How many times have you been inspired, like I have, by people who tell the quite amazing stories about dark times in their lives, how they turn things around, and you think, wow. Wow. And so even through our sufferings, if we can keep our light shining, can become a source of help and encouragement to others that we come across and others that we meet. And that's obviously by how we react to them, how we handle them, by displaying our faith is real, through our actions, through our reactions. No matter what we've gone through, or even going through today, just as there was for Joseph, he's there no matter what. It's hard, it's tough, but he's there. But here's the thing. Whatever trial we go through, whatever things happen to us, there is always, as there was for Joseph, an after this. After this. And I want to tell you this morning that after this, for Joseph, there was something better. After this, things moved forward. Yeah, he'd been through all the rubbish, he'd been through all the trials, but after this, things got better. So I want to say this morning, I don't know where we're at. I only know where I'm at. Don't throw the towel in. You might have come this morning thinking, I'm ready to throw the towel in. You might be watching online thinking, I'm ready to throw the towel in. Don't. Don't turn off the light of faith. We may make appointments, but get this, God makes arrangements. We make appointments, but God makes arrangements. And he's got arrangements for each and every single one of us. Whatever we face today, friends, God says this day, I see greater after this. God wants you to know that whatever you're going through, there is an after this. Just as there was for Joseph, there's one for me and there's one for you. I wonder this morning, I suppose the challenge is, do we believe that? Do we believe that? Because when you're going through something, it's really hard, isn't it? It's really tough. But let's fast forward. There's an after this. There's an after this. If the band want to start coming back up. Then as I was getting ready this morning, as is usual, my phone pinged. And there was a little message from my dad, because he knew I was preaching on Joseph. And he said, I woke up in the middle of the night, and this came to me, so I'm sending it to you this morning. And this is it, and with this I finish. And then after we've done some more worship, it'll lead nicely into prayers and what we need to pray for. And so with this I finish. And he sent me this message. John Wycliffe, a 14th century priest and translator, said this: the passages about Joseph keep saying, the Lord was with Joseph and prospered him. Yet Wycliffe's translation was this: the Lord was with Joseph and he was a lucky fellow. God's luck is sure. God's luck is certain, not like the world's luck, which is a game of chance and might be's, etc. So, Joseph Christians are lucky fellows, and that includes the ladies, obviously. But so this morning, as I end, there's an after this, and Joseph Christians are lucky fellas. The question is, are we? God bless.